hello, namaskara. This is Round Rajas from Radio City 91.1. And today on the Facebook Live, I have Dr. Sandeep Nayak, Director, Department of Surgical Oncology, Fortis Hospital, Bangalore. And he's also the Director of MACS Clinic, Jayanagar. Doctor, welcome to this Facebook Live, and you'll be educating us on colon cancer.
Thank you, Rajas, and it is nice to be talking to you. And let's hope we'll cover some good ground on colonic cancer because it's a very common cancer.
Okay, sir. Before talking about the cancer part, I got to know that you're a very good artist.
Um, I think I would call myself a moderate artist, not a
Uh-huh.
very good artist, but
Okay.
yeah, I do some bit of artwork and been doing it for some time.
Mm-hmm.
But off late, yes, it's a bit difficult to find a balance between doing artwork and work. So
Uh-huh.
both, it's quite difficult. So it's gone on the back burner literally.
Okay. But how did you develop this interest in art?
See, art is something I think, some of us are born with. We want to explore art as we grow. And, in fact, I remember when I was in primary school, in fact, that's when I realized I could draw. First thing I remember was I drew a car. And
Mm-hmm.
that interested me, I started drawing more and more.
Okay.
And then I learned something from I remember learning some pencil sketching from my dad. I remember him teaching me, okay, this is how to shade a thing.
Okay.
So that's how it went on growing. And yes, I did a few, I still love to do a lot of pencil sketching actually, whenever I get some time.
That's very nice, sir. So, which are your three most favorite works from your amazing collections, and why?
No, I don't have any amazing collection actually, but yeah, I do like some things which I have done, like mainly, I would say I have done one sketch of Buddha, which is very nice, which I like. And there are some sculptures which I have drawn, not
Mm-hmm.
sculpting. I don't do any sculpting, but I have drawn them. So that is also quite good. And I do some bit of oil painting. Some of them I like.
That's nice, sir. Sir, I want to ask this question: is surgery an art? And can you please elaborate on this?
See, anything that requires your hand skills is art, and surgery requires a lot of skill. Hand movements are very important.
Mm-hmm.
So, art is a part of surgery, and it's very important part. So, in fact, that is one of the reasons why I got interested in surgery, and I found that field to be more, suitable for me, and that's how I went into that direction. So definitely, surgery is a form of art. In fact, for that matter, if you say, though medicine itself is a performance art,
True.
it is not a pure science. So in that, surgery becomes more of an art form than pure science. Though a lot of science is involved in that, of course.
Sir, when it comes to colon cancer, who is more at risk in terms of age, actually?
Yeah, see, when it comes to all cancers, let's not isolate this cancer alone, but
Mhm.
age, age is something which is an unavoidable risk factor. There are many risk factors which we can avoid. We can bring the risks down and all. But age is something which we can't reverse. I can't become younger. So it is one factor. As you grow older, your risk of all cancers increases. So does colonic cancer.
Okay.
So generally what we say is, anybody above the age of 50 years has a higher risk of cancer, higher risk.
Hmm.
So what happens to our body is, as you grow older, like say about the age of 40, okay, all the chronic damages that have happened to the body start manifesting.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's like an accumulation of your damages, and
Okay.
as your car is getting older, however well you maintain it, it reaches one age, it starts giving you trouble. Same
True.
way, as your body is getting older, on an average about 40 years, you can expect some use related problems, which are all, they would have accumulated, and you will start seeing the problems. So like many other diseases, like like diabetes, like thyroid problem and cancer, all these are related to the longevity. As you live longer, your risk increases. So generally we say anything above, anybody who gets cancer above 50, it is because of age itself. So age is one of the major factors which we cannot avoid.
So, how does diet play a role in colon cancer?
Diet is something which has been researched extensively. In fact, even my own research papers are there on diet and colonic cancer. So it's very, in fact, what we have been seeing is that a diet which is rich in these food things like green leafy vegetables and all has a much lower risk of getting cancers. But there are fruits also. In fact, fruits also have been proven to be protective.
Mhm.
But there are factors like our red meat. There are factors like refined sugars. Refined sugar means like these our sweets, our unde, laddu, all those things which are very high rich in calories and we rich in fat.
Mhm.
These factors, these things can really increase the risk of cancer, and they can be they can also cause many other diseases for you. So also what we call as processed food. Processed food means you are talking about the food like something like,
Packed food,
yeah, exactly, packed food, or your
soft
some
drinks.
cold drinks, soft drinks, fizzy drinks and all that. All these things are a high risk thing for colonic cancer. In fact, they are very rich in sugars. So these things could be a very high risk factor. They can increase your risk. Also, another very important factor which comes is the red meat.
Mhm.
Red meat means beef, the mutton, red, all this, the red colored meat. These are all also all are very important factors. They are known to cause colonic cancer. And in fact, there is a paper which I have published, and it was about I think about 7 to 8 years back, which was actually quoted even by a Nobel laureate in his paper for dietary causes of cancer. So it is very well known, very established fact that red meat, especially red meat which is processed meat,
Mhm.
something like barbecued meat and all that, has a higher risk of they do cause, or they do predispose you to cancer, colonic
Okay.
cancer especially.
Okay. But how does lifestyle play an important role in colon cancer actually?
Okay. So now lifestyle, when we talk about, is what we actually do with our body. That's what it means. Now earlier I was just talking about the car which is being mal handled and done a lot of misused car. So like that only we can misuse our body by resorting to all sorts of addictions like tobacco, like consumption of alcohol, extreme amounts of alcohol. It's not, I'm not talking about a peg of alcohol once in a while. No, I'm talking about an abuse, like every day consuming alcohol, and such kind of abuses to the body. So such kind of abuses always are a high risk factor to cause colonic cancer. No doubts about that. There is enough evidence, and we know for sure. In most of many cases, in fact, we take that history of consumption of tobacco, smoking in every cancer case, and colon cancer is not an exception for that.
Okay. So are there other diseases that increases the risk?
Yes, there are other diseases which can increase the risk of colon cancer. In fact, one of the most common among them is diabetes. And remember, India is a diabetic capital of the world. If you didn't know, in fact, we have more diabetic patients per thousand or per lakh population than anywhere else in the world. So we So we know our risk, probably one of the reasons why we are having increase in number of colonic cancers is diabetes. It's possible. So diabetes is one of the risk factors. Apart from that, obesity is another risk factor. Anybody, high body fat index or BMI, body mass index, which we talk about, are people who have a higher risk of colonic cancer. Then there are other some diseases which are rare, what we call as ulcerative colitis, chronic Crohn's disease, and all that. uh, Not so common, but it is there in the society. We do see some patients with these diseases every once in a while, and they are also risk factors for colonic cancer.
Okay. Can colon cancer be transmitted in family? Is it contagious or like how it works?
Okay, first of all, cancers are not contagious. See, it doesn't spread from person to person. So you can go eat with the cancer patient, you can go around, you can have them in your house. There is no risk involved of spreading from person to person. Now, uh, core of the question what you asked, transmission within the family, which means
Yeah.
we are talking about hereditary transmission. So if your father, your mother, my father, my mother had colon cancer, is there a risk for me or not? So see, the hereditary cancers, when you talk about the cancers in the which we see, accounts for about 5 to 10% of the cancers. 5 to 10%, which means it's a very small group of cancers which are hereditary. Now when we there are hereditary cancer syndromes. So how do we diagnose these cancers and when do we suspect? When in a family we start seeing 4 or 5 cancer patients in a group, like a person comes and tells me that my father also had, his brother, uncle also had. Now suddenly there is a question mark which comes in our mind: is there a familial chance? Is it a family of cancer patients? So this is that is when we start suspecting. Or a person comes at a age which is less than 50 years of age, so there also we start suspecting. So in these group of patients, what we do is we, along with the cancer workup, which we do, if it's a person who coming with a cancer, remember I'm talking about cancer patient who's below the age of 50 and says, I have, or we diagnose cancer, we do what is called as genetic test for them. We do a genetic test. We run a genetic test to see whether there is a familial risk. Is there any genetic risk for this particular person?
Hmm.
So if that person does not have, as per the genetic test, there is no issues at all. We treat them as any other patient. But if there is a genetic risk, we look at certain other factors and we plan the treatment based on those factors. I don't think we can discuss that much detail here, but overall this is the pattern. But remember, the follow-up pattern, the way we manage a person with a genetic history of cancer, colon cancer or any other cancer, is different from a common person.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a way in which we manage, and that has to be kept in mind when a person goes to the doctor. It has to be given, that history or the information has to be revealed.
Okay. But how do you manage these families differently from normal people actually?
Okay, so I'll just give you a brief idea. See, instead of, see, for example, if I get a cancer patient whom we think, okay, this is a familial, and we prove that it is familial cancer, we might do instead of removing only a small portion of the colon, we might remove the entire, because there is a risk of getting cancer in the rest of the colon. There are times, there are good number of times I have many families which are cancer families. Okay, I have families with entire family, everybody in the family getting the same cancer, colon cancer. For example, there are syndromes called HNPCC or FAP. There is familial adenomatosis polyposis syndrome. That's a syndrome. So there are a lot of these syndromes wherein the entire family will have a risk of developing colon cancer. So what do we do for these patients? We generally, there is an option of prophylactic surgery. Means even before the cancer is diagnosed, we do surgery and remove the colon. So with it, what happens is we avoid the cancer from occurring.
Okay.
So the person gets cured before the disease starts. So that we are totally avoiding that from happening and the repercussions of it. Because if we wait for the cancer to come, then there is a full load of cancer treatment that has to happen, like the chemotherapy, the the everything related to it, radiation sometimes. So, and the effort and the complications of it, the side effects of it, that wasted time in that, there are a lot of issues associated with it which can be avoided by doing that.
Okay.
But again, everybody does not get it. There are it's a meticulously done process, and we select the patients based on many criteria.
Sir, what are the early symptoms of colon cancer actually?
Right. So, see, any cancer does not have any particular symptom related to it alone. So, whenever we look at cancer symptoms, we look at cancer symptoms in relationship to that particular organ. And so, a symptom that can be attributed to, say, colon, like, any symptom that is attributed to colon can be because of cancer as well. So now, for example, so many patients tend to complain about constipation, and they say, I used to pass normally stools every day. I used to pass, and suddenly for the past 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or for that matter 4 weeks, it's been very difficult. So that's one of the common symptoms. Or alternating, loose stools with constipation. Say, 1 week I'm having a lot of loose motion, and suddenly, then I know for next 2 weeks I'm constipated, or next 1 week I'm constipated. So this kind of a symptom is a worrisome symptom for anybody, and that needs to be investigated. See, we are not looking at a sudden onset of constipation which will last for 2 days and it gets over. We are looking at a persistent symptom. Person is getting falling sick every now and then, finding it difficult very continuously. So that is something which we are always worried about. So apart from this, a blood in the motion could be a warning sign. It could be fresh blood, it could be altered blood, it could be black colored motion. So all these are very much, they are warning signs of colon cancer. Also, very important symptom which I always think it is ignored is fatigue. A feeling of tiredness, feeling that I'm weak, I'm not able to do my routine work. It's a very important symptom, because very commonly patients are anemic. They find it, their blood levels, blood hemoglobin levels will be very low, and that gets ignored very often. So patients who are anemic, who have difficulty in doing the routine work, who find themselves in very tired, are to be investigated. And very simple tests, very often, what happens in practice is, they simply start themselves on iron tablets to get their hemoglobins back up, or some general practitioner will start on iron tablets. These things should be avoided in the beginning. They should first investigate themselves with colonoscopy, which is a common test. Colonoscopy is the test where a tube like instrument is put, and they check the entire colon, large colon, and find out if there is any growth or any other problems in that area. And that is very important. That has to be done. So weakness and low hemoglobin is a very, very worrisome factor. And remember, very important thing which is forgotten very often is a male or a man with low hemoglobin is a very big worry, because a man with low hemoglobin is an indication that something is going wrong.
Okay.
A young female, a person who's in their menstrual age group, or when perimenopausal, up to the time of their menopause, if they have some amount of anemia, it is acceptable. We know they are losing some amount of blood. But a post-menopausal woman, a person, a woman who has already attained menopause, finds or we find some anemia among them, again a thorough investigation is required. We cannot ignore it at all.
Okay. But how to detect the colon at a very early stage?
So see, a more important question is, how to detect it before even the first symptom appears. See, we have spoken so much about symptoms. How do we detect it before any symptom appears? Because it seems like a magic. You find out if somebody comes, you say, oh no, you have colon cancer. What is it that we need to do? So the this has been, there are tests which are there which are designed to identify colon cancer before they cause first symptom. And one of the important tests is the test on the feces. Okay, just checking the stool. For there is a test which is looks for blood in the stool. There are tests we are talking about blood that you can't see. So there are tests which detect that blood in the stool, and if there is blood in the stool in that test, then further investigation is done. So what do we recommend? See, every preventive health check, or what we call as master health checkup, which many people undergo every year, there will be that stool examination test. So if everybody who goes for a stool examination test every year, there is a very good chance that some of them may develop or identify themselves with colon cancer. So that test alone will give us whether there is blood in the stool or not. And if there is blood, then the person needs to undergo a colonoscopy test. Colonoscopy is the test which will look inside the colon, and if there is something, then it can be biopsied. See, colonoscopy is not only to detect cancers which are active. So the advantage of screening is also that we can detect things which may lead to cancer. So there are something called polyps, colonic polyps, and there are many different types of polyps. Polyps means projections inside the colon, which if colonoscopy is done, if they are detected, they can be removed. They are very tiny things, if which can be removed in the root itself, and occurrence of colon can be completely prevented. Colonic cancer can be completely prevented. So these are called adenomas. So if these adenomas are diagnosed early enough and they are removed by colonoscopy itself, the cancer itself does not occur. So the best part is this adenomas take about 5 to 10 years to become cancer. So just imagine you are nipping the thing in the bud itself. So it is possible to do it. In fact, the results of this will be excellent because you're not going for any kind of cancer treatment at all. You're basically going for colonoscopy, removing all the colonic polyps, and that is the end of it. And that is why it is important. So if alternatively, what they say is you can undergo colonoscopy after the age of say 50 years of age or 45 years of age. Once in 10 years, if you undergo colonoscopy, you can avoid colonic cancer. You can nip it in the bud by removing the adenomas. So it is possible to stop colonic cancer from happening altogether.
Okay. In this COVID era, should people postpone regular screening and wait for the pandemic to go back?
See, in fact, this question was raised again and again. In fact, what we today know is, there will, most of the cancers, if they're not diagnosed, they are going to progress. Just because you didn't diagnose them, it is not going to sit quiet. So they are going to progress, and we expect that there will be an, increase in the mortality or the death due to cancer by at least about 30%, 20 to 30% in this coming years. Because of because people did not go for treatment, people did not go for diagnosing themselves. They ignored the symptoms and sat at home, or didn't go for screening also. So the request for people is to go for screening, which they were doing. They should go for it. They should get themselves screened, and it is very important that they screen so that the diagnosis happens much earlier than generally, or delayed diagnosis. We don't want any cancers to be diagnosed in stage 4. Our intention is to diagnose cancers when they are early stage, like stage 1, stage 2 is also acceptable. We want to avoid stage 3 and stage 4. So stage 4 is the worst because it's already spread beyond the organ. It's gone to liver, lungs, and all other places. So stage 4 is very bad. So it is, our intention is that at least in stage 1 or 2 we should diagnose and treat the cancers.
Okay. Is a cancer treatment more uncomfortable than the disease, as some say?
Well, see, yes, many people think that cancer treatment is more difficult. In fact, the problem is, I always say it is like climbing Mount Everest. So if you have some goal to achieve, it is always difficult to go. You cannot simply go and climb Mount Everest one fine day. There are issues, there are difficulties, but finally, what are we trying to achieve is what matters. If your aim is to cure the disease, any effort is worth the effort to get that, that cure. But if you're talking about a palliative case where we are not intending to cure, the intention is not cure, then the effort that is put and the troubles that the person has to go through should be reduced. So in simple words, it is better, see, if the effort is there, if it is difficulty should be for a good cause. The cause of it is, or the end of it should be the cure of disease.
Okay. Is surgery needed to cure colon cancer?
Well, see, it's something like, if you have some waste in your house, it has to go out. You cannot live with it.
True.
So, in colon cancer also, the main treatment is surgery. We remove the tumor, we remove the entire colon, and we have to remove it, and we have to take it out of the body. That remains the primary treatment or the main treatment. In addition to it, there are times when we give chemotherapy based on the stage of the cancer. Early stage cancers do not get any chemotherapy. For advanced cancers like stage 3, we have to give chemotherapy. So the main treatment remains surgery. And even for stage 4 cancers, the main treatment, if it's feasible to do, whenever we are attempting a cure, if you want to try and cure cancer, surgery is a part of it. Without surgery, it is not possible to cure.
Okay. What about chemotherapy, sir?
What about chemotherapy? Okay, so chemotherapy is given in order to reduce the risk of recurrence. See, once surgery is over, so you want to further reduce the risk. You want to make it better for the patient. Then it is given. Now, when do we need it? You need it only most of the times in stage 3 cancers, wherein there is a higher risk of recurrence. So what we do is we give chemotherapy, and we know that about 50% reduction in the recurrence is there. Recurrence means cancer coming back. So there is a 50% reduction in cancer coming back whenever we give chemotherapy in stage 3 cancers. Whereas in stage 1 and 2, there is very little evidence. Some cases of stage 2 we do give. There is a lot of tests which we do before giving it. But stage 1 does not require any chemotherapy. Whereas stage 4 is predominantly treated by chemotherapy. Surgery is only possible in selected cases. So chemotherapy has a major role, especially in stage 3.
Okay. So what is a minimal invasive cancer surgery?
Now see, surgery traditionally, we used to happen with a big wound, right? Bigger the surgery, bigger the wound.
True.
So that concept has changed a lot over time. And today we are looking at very tiny wounds when we are doing all these major surgeries, what we talk about, through very, very small wounds. We put 5mm wounds, 10mm wounds to put some cameras inside and do the surgery inside. In fact, the advantage of that is For the surgeon, we are going very close to the organ. We can see much better. We are seeing much more clarity with a big screen. Magnification is far better. And, we are able to get much better assistance when we do laparoscopically, provided you know how to do it. Of course, it is subject to knowing the technology, and being able to handle it is very important. And also, worldwide, the minimally invasive surgery has picked up for colonic cancer. In fact, countries like Korea and all, most of the surgeries in colon cancer surgeries happen laparoscopically only. So for the patient, what is the advantage? The results or the stay in the hospital is reduced. Patients go home much quicker. Pain is very less. There is hardly any blood loss. So the patient, the way they recover from the surgery is phenomenal. They go home much earlier than open surgery. And long-term wound-related problems are very, very less. So they do very well when the surgery is performed laparoscopically. For colon as such, my preference is laparoscopic.
Okay. So we hear about staplers being used in surgeries. Some people are worried about these staplers. So what is your take on this, sir?
Yeah, what happens is, some people will suddenly come later on, with the report of CT scan or something, and there will be some mentioning of the stapler and all that. So you see, staplers have been evolved over time. They are usually made of inert metals like titanium and all that, and they are used to join the intestine. And they're a very essential part of the surgery today, because they make it faster, and it's much easier for the surgeon to do the job. So these remain in the body permanently, just like some bone with a person with fracture gets a plate fixed inside the bone and all that. So like that, only for intestine to join together, we use staplers, and they're perfectly safe. They don't cause any harm. And of course, yeah, they are permanently there. They're harmless as such.
Okay. So one final question, sir. Is colon cancer curable?
See, the simple answer is yes. It is very much curable. And but what the caveat or but in that is actually, when you come, it all depends on what stage you come. So if you come in early stage, it is curable. If it is a late stage, there are problems with cure. See, in early stage, like stage 1, almost 100% cure can be achieved, even 95% we say. In stage 2, the cure rate decreases slightly, maybe 80% or so. But when it comes to stage 3, it comes down to 50% or around 60-70% today. So in stage 4, the cure comes to around maybe 20 to 30%. Again, there is a segment what we call as stage 4 cancer, which can be operated, because we are able to do surgery and we can remove all the cancer. In them, the results could be better. In fact, up to 60% of them can still survive up to 5 years. So the curability of colon cancer is very, very good today, because surgeries are advanced, and we have advanced treatments today, like chemotherapy and all. Patients are doing very good today. So in fact, cancer is curable. Colon cancer is a curable disease.
Okay. Thanks a lot, doctor, for educating us and giving us your time. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate that, actually. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.